I used to think the way I talked to myself didn't really matter. I mean, it's just me, right? Who's going to hear it? Then I stumbled across this research showing that the average person has around 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are on repeat. And I remember thinking, well, that's unsettling, because if even half of those thoughts were the things I used to say to myself, then I wasn't just having a bad day. I was training my brain to expect the worst. And that's when it hit me. Talking to yourself isn't harmless background noise. It's direction, it's instruction, it's the script your brain uses to decide who you are and what you're capable of. So when I say talk to yourself like this for just 5 days, I'm not offering a cute phrase to pin on your fridge. This is a challenge, a reset, a decision to take control of your mind and redirect your future. Because for 5 days, you're going to speak to yourself with the same honesty, courage, and compassion you give to people you love. And it's going to feel weird and uncomfortable and maybe a little confrontational, but it's also going to change something in you that's been waiting to shift for a long time. Your brain believes what you repeat. I know that sounds simple, maybe even a little too simple, but sometimes the truth is like that. We expect transformation to come wrapped in complexity, but most of the real change in our lives starts with tiny decisions that seem almost embarrassingly small. And yet those decisions accumulate, they stack, they rewire who we become. One of the things I learned early in my research is that the brain is constantly trying to make your life easier. It wants routines, it wants shortcuts, it wants patterns it can file away so it doesn't have to work so hard. So every time you repeat a thought, even if it's just a quiet little whisper inside your head, your brain says, oh, we're doing this again. Let me make that faster. Let me make that automatic. That's great if what you're repeating is helpful. But if what you're repeating is, I'm behind, I'm not good enough, I always mess this up, or that classic greatest hit we all seem to have on our playlists, what's wrong with me? Your brain isn't arguing with you. It's not saying, no, that's actually not true. It's saying, sure, I'll build a highway for that thought. I'll make it the first exit your mind takes when anything stressful happens. And suddenly, it's not just a thought. It's an identity, a default, a lens you look through without even realizing it. That's why these 5 days matter, because repetition is not neutral. It's instruction. You're telling your brain what to prepare for and what to prioritize. You're shaping the emotional tone of your future without even noticing it. There's this incredible study on neuroplasticity showing that the brain reorganizes itself based on what we practice, even if what we're practicing is invisible to everyone else. Think about that. The thoughts no one hears, the words no one reads, the internal narratives no one can see are literally changing the structure of your brain. So when we talk about building resilience or courage or confidence, we're not talking about magic. We're talking about practice. And I get it. Shifting the way you talk to yourself can feel artificial at first. It can feel like you're pretending. I've had people tell me it just doesn't feel honest. And I always say, of course it doesn't feel honest. Honesty is whatever you've repeated the longest. Familiar is not the same as true. Familiar is just familiar. So for 5 days, I want you to interrupt the familiar. I want you to question whether the voice in your head is actually you or just something you rehearsed for so many years that it started to sound like truth. When you catch yourself saying something harsh, pause. Notice it. Then deliberately choose a different thought, not something unrealistic, not something you don't believe, but something that points you forward instead of pulling you backward. Something like, I'm learning, or I'm growing, or this feeling is tough, but I can handle tough things. You're not replacing your entire identity. You're giving your brain a new path to consider. And here's the quiet miracle. The brain adapts faster than we expect. 5 days of intentional repetition is enough to loosen old loops. It's enough to break the automatic pattern so you can build a new one with clarity instead of fear. This isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about refusing to train your brain to expect the worst about you. It's about teaching your mind to believe a story that finally supports the person you are becoming. Compassion builds courage. I used to think it was the other way around, that courage came first, that bravery was what allowed us to be gentle with ourselves. But the more I learned and the more people I sat with in their hard moments, the clearer it became that compassion isn't a reward for being strong. Compassion is the soil where courage actually grows. Somewhere along the way, we picked up this idea that being tough on ourselves is the fastest route to improvement. You know that voice that says, "Get it together," or "Everyone else can handle this, why can't you?" Or the real classic, "If you don't push yourself harder, you're going to fall behind." And the wild thing is, we repeat these lines like they're motivational slogans, but what they really create is fear. Fear of messing up, fear of disappointing others, fear of disappointing ourselves. And fear is a terrible long-term fuel source. It burns hot and fast, and then it leaves you exhausted, resentful, and convinced that the only way to stay afloat is to keep beating yourself up. But compassion says something completely different. It says, you're trying. It says, this is hard and you're human. It says, you can't grow while constantly bracing for the next blow from your own mind. And I know, for some of us, self-compassion feels like we're letting ourselves off the hook. It feels too soft, too forgiving, too indulgent. I hear that a lot. And every time someone says it, I'm like, okay, but how's the self-criticism working out for you? Has it made you braver, kinder, more resilient? Has it helped you take more risks or recover faster after a mistake? There's research showing that people who practice self-compassion are more motivated, not less. They're more willing to apologize, to take responsibility, to get back up after a setback. And the reason is pretty simple. When you treat yourself with compassion, you create emotional safety. And emotional safety is what allows the brain to experiment, to explore, to take risks without spiraling into shame. You aren't constantly scanning for evidence of your own failure. You're grounded enough to try again. I've seen it play out over and over. When someone shifts from "I should be further ahead" to "I'm learning," something softens, but something also strengthens. It's like their shoulders drop a little, their breath deepens, and suddenly the problem in front of them looks a little less like a threat and a little more like a challenge. Compassion doesn't erase difficulty, but it changes the way you approach it. You're no longer walking into the storm already convinced you won't survive it. And let me say this clearly. Compassion isn't the same as avoiding accountability. It's not pretending everything is fine. It's not shrugging and saying, well, this is just who I am. Real compassion is honest. It sees the whole picture. It says, yes, this needs work. And also, yes, you are worthy of kindness while you figure it out. You can hold both. And honestly, if you want courage, real courage, you have to hold both. When you talk to yourself with compassion for 5 days, something important happens. You stop bracing. You stop anticipating your own criticism. You start trusting yourself enough to try again, to keep going, to stay in the arena even when things get messy. And that trust is the foundation of courage, because courage isn't something you build in perfect conditions. Courage is built in the moments when you feel shaky, unsure, frustrated, tired, but you choose to be on your own side anyway. Compassion builds the courage to take the next step. And sometimes one step is all you need to change your direction. Naming the thought reduces its power. I know it seems almost too simple, like one of those techniques you read in a self-help book and immediately think, really? Just naming it? But there's something incredibly grounding that happens when you take a thought that's been circling around in your head like a storm cloud and you actually call it what it is. I've spent years studying the way shame, fear, and anxiety work in our bodies, and the pattern is always the same. The thoughts we don't name become the thoughts that run the show. They operate in the background, shaping how we feel, how we react, how we speak to ourselves, all without us realizing it. It's like having this internal narrator who's been freelancing for way too long and has never once checked whether the script is accurate. And the moment you turn toward it and say, okay, what exactly am I thinking? The spell breaks. You stop being inside the thought and instead begin observing it. There's real psychology behind this. When you label an emotion or a belief, the part of your brain responsible for fear and overreaction quiets down. The prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for decision-making and logic, steps in. By naming what's going on, you're literally shifting your brain out of survival mode and into something steadier, clearer, more grounded. And I get it. Sometimes those inner thoughts feel embarrassing or dramatic or completely irrational, but saying them out loud, even quietly to yourself, exposes them. They lose the intensity they had when they were swirling around unchecked. Instead of everything is falling apart, it becomes I'm feeling overwhelmed. Instead of I always fail, it becomes I'm scared this won't work out. Instead of people will judge me, it becomes I'm worried about being misunderstood. You move from catastrophizing to clarity, and clarity is where change begins. And look, naming the thought doesn't magically fix everything. It's not like you whisper the words and suddenly you're enlightened, but it interrupts the momentum. It gives you a moment to breathe. It gives you a moment to decide whether this thought is helpful or just familiar. And familiar thoughts tend to sound true simply because they've echoed in our minds for so long. When you talk to yourself intentionally for 5 days, this step becomes crucial. You can't shift your internal language if you don't know what's already taking up space in your mind. So when something harsh pops up, you're too slow, you're not trying hard enough, everyone else has it figured out except you, pause, acknowledge it, say it out loud, not with shame, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Ask yourself, is this mine? Is this something I learned? Is this something I want guiding my future? You'll be surprised how often the answer is no. The moment you name the thought, you create distance. You separate who you are from what you're thinking. And that distance is everything. That distance is where choice lives. It's where you get to say, I hear this thought, but I'm not going to follow it. Or this isn't the story I want anymore. When you can identify what's happening inside your head with honesty and compassion, you take back authority over your own inner world. Naming the thought reduces its power. And once the power shifts back to you, you can choose a different story. Direction beats perfection every time. And I wish someone had told me that earlier in my life, because I spent way too many years believing that unless I could do something flawlessly, I probably shouldn't do it at all. Perfection gives this illusion of safety. It tells us if you do everything just right, you won't be judged, you won't be misunderstood, you won't fail. But perfection is a moving target. You chase it and chase it and chase it. And the minute you get close, it shifts again. It's exhausting. It's unforgiving. And honestly, it keeps us stuck. But direction is about movement. It's about choosing the next right step, even if your voice is shaking, even if you're unsure, even if you feel like you're making it up as you go. When you choose direction, you're not promising yourself a flawless journey. You're promising yourself forward momentum, which is a lot more powerful and a whole lot more realistic. One thing I've seen over and over in my work is this. People don't fail because they weren't perfect. They fail because they got overwhelmed trying to be perfect and never allowed themselves to start. Or they started, but the minute they stumbled, they made that stumble mean something catastrophic about who they were. And that's where the cycle of self-criticism kicks in. You know how it goes. See, I knew I wasn't ready. I always mess things up. Why did I even think I could do this? And suddenly the effort stops. The dream pauses and the brain says, let's not try that again. Too risky. But when you focus on direction, you create a different relationship with yourself. Instead of expecting flawlessness, you expect progress. Instead of expecting certainty, you expect learning. Instead of expecting everything to go smoothly, you expect to course correct along the way. And honestly, that's how real change happens. Through course corrections, adjustments, pivots, and moments where you say, okay, that didn't work, but here's what I'm going to try next. Intentional self-talk plays a massive role in this. When you talk to yourself for 5 days with clarity and compassion, you begin shaping a mindset that supports direction instead of demanding perfection. Instead of, I can't mess this up, it becomes, I'm figuring this out. Instead of, if it's not perfect, it doesn't count, it becomes, every step counts. Instead of, I shouldn't try unless I know it'll work, it becomes trying is how I learn what works. And I want to be clear, this isn't about lowering your standards. It's about changing the standard itself. Perfection says, show me you're worthy. Direction says, let's build worthiness through effort, honesty, and consistency. Perfection waits for the moment when you feel ready. Direction trusts the moment you're in and says, start here, start small, start imperfect. There's research showing that people who focus on progress over perfection are more resilient, more motivated, and more likely to sustain long-term change. And that makes sense. If you let yourself move forward, even when things aren't ideal, you build grit, you build endurance, you build a sense of capability that perfection could never offer, because perfection only celebrates you when you hit the target. Direction celebrates you for aiming your life towards something meaningful. So during these 5 days of intentional self-talk, pay attention to the moments when the perfectionist voice shows up. You'll know it when it arrives because it always sounds urgent, critical, rigid. When you hear it, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what's the next doable step right now? Not the perfect step, not the final step, just the next one. That shift alone can change the entire trajectory of your day. Eventually, it can change the entire trajectory of your life. Direction beats perfection, because forward is always better than frozen. Identity is a practice, not a feeling. And I know that can sound a little strange at first, because most of us think identity is this internal certainty we're supposed to wake up with one day. Like, if we're confident, we should feel confident. If we're strong, we should feel strong. If we're capable, it should just be obvious to us. But that's not how this works. In fact, most of the people I've met who seem grounded, courageous, and clear about who they are didn't get there because they felt that way naturally. They got there because they practiced being that kind of person long before it felt true. This is one of the reasons talking to yourself intentionally for 5 days matters so much. Your words aren't just commentary on who you are, they're instructions for who you're becoming. When you repeat a message about yourself, your brain eventually treats it as identity. And the tricky part is that your brain doesn't check whether the message is accurate. It checks whether the message is familiar. Familiar wins every time. So if you've spent years telling yourself things like, I'm not good with change, or I'm not confident, or I always fall apart under pressure, your brain has labeled those as identity, not beliefs you happen to repeat. And the thing about identity is that once we decide something is just who I am, we stop questioning it. We stop challenging it. We stop imagining that we could be someone different. But identity isn't fixed. It's a pattern. It's the result of repeated choices, repeated thoughts, repeated behaviors, repeated stories. It's something you build by showing up in small ways over time. And that means you can rebuild it. You can reshape it. You can shift it one thought, one response, one moment of self-talk at a time. And I get it. Practicing something you don't feel yet can feel uncomfortable, maybe even dishonest. But that discomfort isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're stepping outside the identity your brain has held onto for years. It's like learning a new language. At first, it feels clunky and awkward. You stumble, your tongue trips. But if you keep practicing, one day, you realize you're thinking in the new language without effort. Identity works the same way. There's research showing that our behaviors shape our sense of self more powerfully than our emotions do. The brain watches what you do and what you say, and then it updates the internal narrative. So when you choose to talk to yourself like someone who is learning, growing, capable, or worthy, even before you feel that way, you're teaching your identity to evolve. You're giving your brain evidence of who you're becoming instead of who you've been. During these 5 days, every intentional phrase you say to yourself becomes a vote, a small, meaningful vote for the version of you you're building. You don't need perfect consistency. You don't need flawless execution. You need willingness. You need repetition. You need enough moments of, I'm trying, I'm changing, I'm not who I used to be, to tip the scale. And here's the really incredible part. At some point, the practice becomes the feeling. The identity you've been rehearsing starts to feel natural. You stop trying to be that version of yourself and start being that version of yourself. The story shifts. The voice inside your head softens. the edges loosen. You begin to trust yourself in a deeper way because you've shown up for yourself consistently, even when it felt awkward, even when it felt unfamiliar. Identity is a practice, not a feeling. Practice it long enough, and one day you'll realize the person you've been becoming is finally the person you feel. So as you step into these 5 days, I want you to remember something important. You're not trying to become a different person. You're uncovering the person you've always been beneath the fear, the doubt, the self-criticism, and the old stories you've carried for years. This challenge isn't about transforming yourself into someone new. It's about finally speaking to yourself in a way that lets your true self breathe. These 5 days are a reset. Yes, they're a challenge, absolutely. But more than that, they're a declaration that you are no longer willing to let your worst thoughts become your loudest truths. A declaration that your future deserves a voice that doesn't tear you down before you even begin. A declaration that you can do something brave, even if it's quiet, even if it's uncomfortable, even if no one else sees the work you're doing. And let me tell you something I've learned the hard way. The soft work is the brave work. Changing the way you speak to yourself is not small. It's not easy. It's not some cute self-care trick. It's courageous. It's vulnerable. It's choosing to become an ally to your own growth instead of your own obstacle. 5 days, just 5 days of interrupting old loops, choosing kinder words, pausing when the harsh voice shows up, and replacing it with something that points you forward. You'll be surprised how much shifts when you take responsibility for your inner conversation. You'll feel it, not all at once, but steadily, quietly, strongly, and maybe that's the real power here. Not that you'll magically change in 5 days, but that you'll prove to yourself that you can. You'll show yourself that your mind is not a runaway train. You get to guide it, you get to direct it, you get to teach it how to treat you. Talk to yourself like someone whose future matters, because it does. Talk to yourself like someone who is worth believing in, because you are. Talk to yourself like someone who's capable of real, lasting change, because that's the truth you're stepping into. Good luck. You've got this.